In today's video, I'm going to be looking at a research and an article that has proven that quantum effects, the quantum world, the bizarre world of quantum, the alien world of quantum, the quote-unquote magical, sometimes it's called world of quantum, it affects even objects that are larger than atoms, like molecules. And the whole thing is because scientists, physicists are suggesting the idea that this bizarre, this alien, this strange, this shut up and calculate world of quantum physics actually apply at all scales. You and I, humans, everything. But what they're trying to look at is, where do we draw the line between objects or matter or molecules or atoms that behave in a wave into a particle? How does the transition happen? How does this happen? And I made a video before. I talk about this video all along in this and here. Everything, all the links related to this are gonna be below on the description as usual, but I also go a little bit into the implications of all of this. And what seems to be happening is that the missing link in all of this is consciousness and perception. And I talk about the implications that if quantum mechanics, the alien world, the bizarre world of quantum mechanics actually applies to everything at every scale, including you and I. And as quantum biology has been bringing forward with the research into our molecules, to whatever constitute our bodies, our very DNA, and if consciousness has a way to affect all of that, the implication is that we have more authority over our bodies and perhaps the very reality that we inhabit. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. So in this article, they go into the idea that even huge molecules follow the quantum world's bizarre rules. And you see scientists talking about this strange, this mythical, this weird, magical world of quantum physics. The scientists are saying it. Scientists do not understand it. Bizarre. I've seen magic. I've seen deceiving words of this nature to explain the quote-unquote quantum world, the quantum phenomenon. So this is something to take into account. A record-breaking experiment shows an enormous molecule is also both particle and wave, and that quantum effects don't apply at tiny scales. Don't only apply at tiny scales. This is one of the ideas that is out there, that quantum physics is just one isolated thing that only applies to tiny things. What these scientists are trying to do is saying everything is quantum when you look at it at the micro level. So we are quantum, human beings are quantum. Perhaps the very reality we live in, we inhabit, is quantum when you look at it at the tiniest scale. But the fact that we're not always looking at it at the tiniest scale makes it so it's not quantum anymore. But at a fundamental level, everything is both a particle and a wave. And what they're doing here is they're bringing these molecules, which are way bigger than atoms, contain multiple atoms, and they're saying they're the same thing. At what the main idea of this research is, at what point does a particle, a molecule, a piece of matter stops being quantum, stops being a probability, a possibility, a wave, stops being nothing and becomes something, becomes a particle, becomes solidified, becomes reality. So this is one of the things that I was saying. I made a video about this. If somebody is still struggling with the double slit experiment, or with anyone who might be coming to my channel for the first time and does not know anything about the double slit experiment, I'm gonna link something on the screen. It's a video that I made, the experiment that cracked reality wide open. I go in depth because everybody just looks at the double slit experiment from the outside. On that video, I go in depth into it, and I attach some of the newest pieces of research that has been done on that. And this research is tied to the double slit, and this is more information interpretation into it, so it goes on forward with that. Okay, so as a final preamble before going into the actual research and article, another reason why I wanted to make this video and to keep going into the research on quantum is because I recently made a video about the research on memories and how they do not seem to be stored anywhere in the brain, but they are rather encoded at the cellular, molecular, synaptic, and circuit levels, according to the authors. What does this even mean? At the molecular level in the brain or in the cells, where are our memories stored? And I talk about quantum information. I talk about some of the ideas of the orchestrated objective reduction theory from Penrose and Hameroff, and I talk about all of this, and some people were saying, well, molecules are not quantum in some of social media and some of the comments. Okay, that's a first statement, but how do we know that molecules are not quantum? We don't know. The researchers are going into all of these, and at what point is a molecule quantum or not? What they're doing here is they're showing that molecules are also both particle and wave. They're also possibilities. They're also probabilities. And if information is stored in these molecules or in these particles or in this energy that seems to encompass everything, this network, what I like to call the quantum field of consciousness, then what are we talking about? What is reality made of? Is it all information? Is it all particles? Is it all waves? Is it all energy? What exactly is going on? So I'm gonna link that video about memory somewhere on the screen, but it's all tying up to the whole idea that there's a larger field, a field of consciousness, a quantum field of consciousness, a network, a matrix, call it a hologram, call it a virtual reality, call it God, whatever you want to call it. We are looking into it and we are deciphering its mysteries. Alright, so the article starts going into the whole idea of the wave particle collapse and the idea of superposition. So it says, magnify a speck of 30,000 times and suddenly it no longer seems to play by the same rules. Its outline, for example, won't look defined most of the time and will resemble a diffuse, sprawling cloud. If we look at anything in depth with a microscope or whatever instruments they are using, whatever, any piece of matter, when you look at it directly, you come to realize that it doesn't really exist. It's basically information which aligns and puts itself together. So in some books, it says, in some books you'll find they say a particle is in various places at once, says physicist Marcus Arndt. I think this is a lead researcher, and he's got some other quotes of his interpretation on what the research is. So this Marcus Arndt is either the lead researcher or at least is part of the research. Whether that really happens is a matter of interpretation. So when we look at the quantum level, is the particle this is what is called superposition. The particle is in multiple places at once, so where is it really? But what he's saying here is another way to put in it is quantum particles sometimes act like waves spread out in space. They can slosh into each other and even back onto themselves. The way that I like to see it is that they don't really exist. And this is one of the arguments that I made in that video of the experiment that cracked reality wide open. When you look into the most recent research, they have a way to modulate this wave particle collapse with some use of technology. So what this means, and this modulation comes into the perception. What it truly means is that the wave particle reality, they both exist at the same time. What changes is our perception. So these particles that we see, this reality that we see, at the same time, it does not seem to exist. It seems to be waves. It's non-existent. It's only when we collide, or it's called the collapse of the wave function, that we see our reality. So then you come into the multiple theories, the multiverses, and the Copenhagen interpretation of realities, of multiple realities, and reality is not real, and everything is a hologram, so on and so forth. This is more complicated. I'm going to go into it in the future. But right now, the idea is that this is how we can think of the quantum phenomenon. It doesn't really exist. It's just probability. And it goes forward into this. But if you poke at this wave-like object, this cloud of probabilities, this diffuse sprawling cloud of probabilities that becomes a speck of dirt or whatever matter you are talking about, with certain instruments, or if the object interacts in specific ways with nearby particles, it loses its wave-like properties and starts acting like a discrete point, a particle, a thing, an actual piece of matter, an actual part of our reality. When it's not a particle, you could say that it's on a different subset of reality. And this is where I make the connection between the physical and the metaphysical. And one of the arguments that I made in that video, as I said, I already linked it somewhere on the screen, you can find it below, the experiment that cracked reality wide open, is that we are looking at the bridge, and we're defining exactly where does the non-physical, this realm that has existed in our philosophies, and we are seeing in modern reports of altered states of consciousness, connects with the physical reality and the quantum phenomenon, the actual point where the collapse of the wave particle function exists, is that in between. We're looking at it. Physicists have observed atoms, electrons, and other minutiae transitioning between wave-like and particle-like states for decades. So now it says here, if you poke at this wave-like object with certain instruments, and this is the double slit experiment, when they look at the pattern and they started to put detectors on it, so the detector would look at the particle, and then the particle would be supposed to have been going through the detector, and then the idea was the detector, or some sort of measurement, what they call measurement, also would create this wave particle collapse. It didn't happen in some of the instances. It only happened when someone looked at it. So that's where the whole mystery of the observer effect occurred. And this is, if you call the observer effect in quantum physics, scientists do not know what to do with this. And they came up with the phrase "shut up and calculate," because scientists were so impressed, so dumbfounded, and so surprised by this effect, that it takes human consciousness or human observation into creating this wave particle that they couldn't accept it. So this is what they said: shut up and calculate. You cannot say that reality only exists when we look at it. You cannot exist that these particles react to the human consciousness, to the human observation. There's got to be something else working in the universe. So they said, shut up and calculate, keep looking into it. And the scientists have been calculating for 100 years, and we still haven't found a concise answer to the phenomenon. So this is really important. This is why I'm going into the whole thing. If consciousness, human consciousness, or consciousness at large, has an effect or affects in some way the quantum phenomenon, if this is managed to be proven or confirmed at some point, it would change our whole foundation of reality. It would make a lot of things that ancient philosophies and the New Age and so on and so forth have been talking about for years, and let alone the concept that we literally render reality into existence, let alone the concept that perhaps what people used to call magic could be somehow real in a way, let alone the concept and the New Age law of attraction, that you can create your life or your reality however you want and attract the things that you want, let alone all of that. What I'm really interested in is if consciousness has an effect at the quantum level on the particles and the very building blocks of our reality. And as quantum biology is starting to understand, I have a few videos on quantum biology, I'm going to be linking them below, we can have an effect on the particles, the cells that constitute our bodies, that our very DNA. It has been confirmed that there is quantum phenomenon in DNA, the building blocks of who we are. If we, with our consciousness, could have an effect on that, it would change the paradigm in terms of health, in terms of wellness and well-being and diseases and all of these things, and the placebo effect, things that we've been talking about for a long time. So this is the whole issue with quantum physics, quantum biology, and consciousness. These are the implications. Alright, so the research moves forward, and it goes into the idea of at what size do quantum effects no longer apply? How big can something be and still behave like both particle and wave? Physicists have struggled to answer that question because the experiments have been nearly impossible to design. So this is what we're doing on that video on the double slit experiment that I made. It talks about a particle. Why doesn't a tennis ball react as a particle and is in multiple places at the same time? At what size does this happen? I think it has to do with perception, with the way that our world is designed, with the way that our brains are designed, and how we perceive reality. As I said in that video also, there's the idea comes forward that everything is actually both a particle, a reality, and a wave at the same time. What changes is our perception, our modulation of reality, and it allows into ideas, as I said, of the multiverse, of different things. So for example, if we look at this picture right here, this is a real picture of real 3D world. Everything here is real. But at the same time, everything here is made of particles. At the fundamental level, if we look at any piece, whether it's a piece of skin, a piece of clothing, a piece of the cables here, anything, when we look at it deeply, it's just particles coming together. So at what point, when we look at these things, does something become a particle or is just a wave? The idea is that it is wave all of the time. But what changes is our perception. So this is how consciousness is what collapses the wave function into our reality. What we're looking at here is the fundamentals of what seems to be the hologram of reality, the virtual reality, the simulation, as some people call it. We're looking at the fundamentals of it. And if we think when people go into near-death experiences, they realize, and they're traveling through all these dimensions, and they're saying, I saw my future, I saw the possible futures. I saw that in one lifetime I did this, in another lifetime I did that. So when we look at some of the research, some of the leaked documents from the Gateway project at the Monroe Institute that was studied and investigated by some government agencies. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. It went mainstream because some TikToker was talking about it, and you can find the links online. You can read them, and they talk about this. It's government agencies saying we might live in a hologram, and reality might not be as real as we think. All the information is out there. Can we prove that we're living in a hologram through that document? No, this is not science, but is science saying that at the fundamental level reality does not exist? Kind of, yes. This is what we're looking at right here. And in this experiment is going a little bit forward and further with this. Now, Arndt and his team have circumvented those challenges and observed quantum wave-like properties in the largest objects to date. This is why it's to date. This is a record-breaking experiment in 2019. Only 3 years ago from making this video. Do people know this? Is this mainstream? Is this being taught everywhere? Is this going viral? It isn't, but this is huge. Record-breaking experiment. we don't really understand the implications. This is why this is not vital right now. This is what we have to look at it. And I like how it says here, wave-like properties in the largest objects to date, molecules composed of 2,000 atoms, the size of some proteins. This leads into the idea again, going back into quantum biology. Could the quantum phenomenon exist within the human body in this, at the building block levels of what constitutes a human being, at the molecular level, at the proteins, everything that is within our bodies? If there is quantum phenomenon attached to that, and if consciousness has an effect on that, can we control in some way our very function, the very functions of our body, our DNA? As I said, there's a huge implication when it comes to healing, but the article actually goes into it, so it's right here. And this is the point where I bring the quotes from the actual research. As I said in that previous video, one person on Reddit said that I did not understand the experiment or the research, even when I quoted and I placed the quote right there from the actual researcher, who literally word by word he says that consciousness does not arise from the brain. That's the conclusion that they're pulling forward. It's the same here. It says one possibility physicists are exploring is that quantum mechanics might in fact apply at all scales. You and I, as humans, quantum mechanics, this magical, this bizarre, as it's used here, the bizarre, the weird, the strange, the shut up and calculate, the spooky world of quantum mechanics might in fact apply at all scales. You and I, while we sit and talk, do not feel quantum, says Arndt, but we are. It applies at all scales. As I said, Arndt is one. Marcus Arndt. I think he's the lead researcher here, or he is involved in it. But this is what they are trying to look at. How is a reality created? We seem to have distinct outlines and do not crash and combine with each other like waves in a pond. We are not quantum, it seems. That's what he's saying. We have distinct. I have my body. You have your body. Why does the world look so normal with quantum mechanics is so weird, so bizarre, so alien, so magical, some people say. But in fact, we are quantum at all scales. As I said on that experiment, the newer experiments that are showing this modulation between the wave-particle collapse, it's suggesting that everything is wave always. We only perceive the collapse, which means only through our perceptions, only through our consciousness, only through perhaps, and this is, I'm pushing a little bit, I'm already pushing forward, but I'm pushing a little bit further forward. Perhaps there is this network, these magnetic fields, this network of information where we are looking into our reality, but it's just that, it's just information. Things do not exist in the real world, as it says. The article starts going into, when you look into a speck of dirt 1,000 times, you see that it's a diffuse, sprawling cloud. This might be what it's actually going on. Everything is a diffuse cloud. It's only when we apply consciousness, our interpretation, our brain, our physical reality into things, when we make it happen and we create the world that we live in. So the implication is that, as I said, we're looking at the fundamentals of what seems to be a virtual reality, a hologram, a simulation, some people call it. We're looking at it, and consciousness seems to be the main thing that is going on. When you go into the reports on the psychedelic experience, and psychedelic experience, what it seems to do is that it breaks the world apart. What they say is that they see, they are in their room, they do a massive dose of whatever psychedelic, and they realize that the world collapses around them. Their bodies dissolve, their reality dissolves, and if they're with other people, they're mixed together. And this is what they're saying here. our outlines, our distinct outlines, do not crash and combine with each other like waves in a pond. But when people do massive doses of these psychedelics, suddenly their worlds do crash and combine with each other like waves in a pond. And if you go into the Bardo Todol, into the ancient Buddhist Book of the Dead, what they're saying is that at the moment of death, it feels like the waves are crashing upon you, and the winds are destroying everything and collapsing reality. And when you go into the literature on the encounters of Prophet Muhammad with the quote unquote angel, he says that he talks about this vibration, about this embrace that the angel had upon him. When you go into the books of Robert Monroe, and he talks about the out-of-body experience, he talks about this incredible vibration and these incredible sounds that happen just before an out-of-body experience. What are we looking at here? We're looking at the fundamental building blocks of what seems to be the hologram of reality. And as I said, everything is applying at the same time. We're always waves. The only thing that makes it be real seems to be this consciousness that is within us and outside of us. That's how we create our current reality. Alright, so as a bit of a conclusion, and as the article finishes up here, I want to remark a few things. So the whole thing is about how quantum mechanics transitions into the world we normally perceive. That's what we're talking about, because I know some people probably are going to say, oh no, this is just about quantum mechanics, about how isolating the molecule. No. It's right here. How quantum mechanics transitions the world we normally perceive. This is what says Arndt. This is the main, because I realize that some people are misunderstanding what I'm saying, and then I get some people who are saying, oh, you're not understanding the research. No, this is the actual researcher. I think it's the lead researcher. He's saying, you and I, we sit and talk, we do not feel quantum, but quantum applies at all scales. It might apply to us. Why does the world look so normal when quantum mechanics? So this is what they're trying to see. How are we living in a reality that is so solid when it all seems to be a soup of subatomic particles? This is what the researchers are saying. I'm not misinterpreting anything. This is what the researchers are trying to look for. And of course, we're looking at the missing link straight away. It seems to be all about perception. We collapse this wave particle. Let's go with one of the theories in the literature, and I'm going on the fringe a little bit because it helps me put out forward what we're talking about. Let's imagine that we are some sort of an experiment from an alien race that is more advanced to us, an alien race that does not have bodies, that do not have a corporeal existence, reality, and we are put into a soup of subatomic particles which create something, which create a world, and the world is made for us to interact in it. There are some theories that are suggesting something of that nature. Does that mean we're just some sort of animals and we're just in some sort of a show? No, there might be very interesting, valuable, and fair purposes for this. Perhaps we are non-physical beings who are evolving in some sort of way, and this world, this soup of atoms which crystallizes in a material world, helps us go through all of that. But I'm getting off this is just an example. There could be many other theories that are happening and are the basis of our reality, but this is what we're looking. How does all of these subatomic particles translate into the world that we normally perceive? It's a dressed up version of the famous double slit experiment, one of the hallmark demonstrations of the wave nature of matter. As I said, if you want to go to the actual nuts and bolts of the thing, is right here. I'm gonna link it so people can go through it and know exactly what's going on and how they did it. So, they talk about the molecule as synthetic behemoth. This is the molecule here that they're working with. This is a huge thing. This is physical matter. It's supposed to be physical matter. It's supposed to be a thing, but then it acts like a wave. Like it's just probability when it's not being looked at, when it's isolated in this thing, and it's being controlled. It acts like it's not a real thing, but it's supposed to be a real thing. And lastly, it goes into the idea that these researchers are going to start experimenting with more massive objects. Eventually, researchers are working toward creating wave-like interference in objects even closer to the macroscopic realm. Can we do this for a virus, a bacteria? You can keep scaling up. What does this mean? And this is when people start, as I said, I'm gonna be linking a lot of my work, my videos that I've been doing on quantum biology. I do believe that quantum biology is a thing that is gonna connect the aspect of consciousness with quantum physics, and it's fairly new, the whole idea of quantum biology, but the experiments are out there. There are there's quantum phenomenon in the DNA. There's quantum phenomenon in the cells when using magnetism. I'm gonna link the video somewhere on the screen right now if I haven't linked it. I made a video about how they did this research, and they did this experiment where they use human cells and they use magnetism, and they realized that there's a quantum effect going on. And now they're theorizing that given that the Earth has an electromagnetic field, this is probably how animals know how to navigate. But now, if you think that every single being alive generates an electromagnetic field, and as I've gone before into, we have this technology, magnetoencephalography, which reads the brain processes, the brain activity without touching our brain, just by perceiving this electromagnetic field that our brain generates. It's a thing out there, outside of us. It's information outside of us the thing is not touching our heads, and they can read our brain process without even touching us, meaning that the information is out there. And they're saying that these electromagnetic fields perhaps could affect the cells in our in the bodies of the animals. Could it affect us? We're seeing, as I said, we are peeking, we're moving the blinders to this greater reality, to this network of information that keeps coming up in the research. Now they are saying, can we do this for a virus, a bacteria? We're talking, if it's working in DNA, if it's working in cells, unicellular organisms. When we would talk about a virus or bacteria, multicellular organisms, you keep scaling up. They're saying right here. I'm not misinterpreting anything. I'm not, going into woo or anything. The research is saying right here, we keep scaling up in the quantum mechanics world. The implication, as it is stated right here, is that quantum mechanics might apply at all scales, you and I. So they're saying that it is applying at the cellular level. What about a virus? What about a bacteria? Could this explain why the placebo effect has an effect on virus and bacteria, has an effect on the human body, for whatever it may be, for positive or negative? Because people are saying the placebo effect is just because stress is releasing, so the body regenerates and so on and so forth. Some people have very specific things happen to them through the placebo effect. Like if you tell them that if they take a pill and they become infertile, they became infertile. This is a very specific thing caused by their consciousness, by their thoughts. Could our thoughts affect virus and bacteria? Could consciousness affect these things at the quantum level? This is the final implication that I've been talking about, is if consciousness is proven to affect biology, to affect at the subatomic level, at the micro level, within our body, at the cellular level, could our thoughts affect virus and bacteria? Could this be what's behind the placebo effect? And you keep bringing pieces to this largest puzzle. Quantum mechanics has inserted a tiny alien world, alien, bizarre, weird. We don't understand it. We don't know what it is. It is magic. It is shut up and calculate into ours. By doing these experiments, physicists hope to find a seam where the two places meet. What? The tiny alien world, the bizarre world, the strange world, with our world, with our physical world, where we don't combine, where it looks so quote unquote normal, where do these things combine? Where do they meet? This is what they're trying to say. What is the point where something becomes physical or non-physical? If indeed, as they are saying, everything is applying at the same scales, and as I've been saying, what seems to be happening is that consciousness is what collapses the wave function. It's simply a perception. When we die, when we go out of body, when people talk about the psychedelic reports, this physical world ceases to exist and consciousness moves into something else. This is what we're looking at in the research, in the bulk of the data, of anecdotal data, of reports, of literature. This is what's happening. This is what seems to be happening. So the only way that our world seems to be looking normal is because of our consciousness, our perception, and perhaps the collective consciousness. We're all in this network of information, and we create our physical world, which is more like a virtual reality or a hologram, as I've said before, where these two places meet, the non-physical and the physical, the metaphysical and the material world. We're looking at, as I said, we're peeking into the Bill of Maya. We're looking into this kingdom. We're looking into this network, into this quantum field of consciousness, into this quantum field, whatever you want to call it. Some people may want to call it God. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.